How did the prospects that the team acquired for closer Ryan Helsley at the trade deadline do after the Cardinals got a hold of them? We'll answer that question today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I am JD Hafron. I'm a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Thank you to our everydayers for being here with us throughout the season and now the off season. And for those of you who are new, welcome in. We hope you enjoy the content. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation, gives you all the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. On today's episode, we've got some Cardinal confessions as fans share their thoughts on the Yadier Molina coaching news from yesterday. We'll check in on the MLB playoffs as the NL Central duel between the Cubs and the Brewers reaches a Game 5. But we start today with sort of an update on what happened after the trade deadline, which it's hard to believe. It was 2 months ago. I can't believe it's been that long, but that's when the Cardinals made 3 significant trades involving their very good bullpen, which was the strength of that team here in 2025. They traded closers Ryan Helsley, should say closers, but one closer in Ryan Helsley to the New York Mets, setup man Phil Maton to the Texas Rangers, and then swingman Steven Matz to the Boston Red Sox. Now, unfortunately for all 3 of those guys and their teams, they are all in the same spot as the Cardinals are right now, sitting on the couch watching the MLB playoffs instead of actually participating in them. The Mets had that unbelievable collapse and failed to make the playoffs. The Rangers threatened for a little while, but eventually they faded away and didn't make it either. They've now got Skip Schumacher as their new manager. And then the Red Sox lost in the wild card matchup against the New York Yankees. Of those 3 trades, it was the Ryan Helsley deal to New York that got the most headlines and also garnered the most prospects in return. And for good reason. He was the reigning NL reliever of the year. Still is, actually. Awards won't be announced until November, so he still is the NL reliever of the year as of right now. But his stock, by the time we got to the trade deadline, it had fallen quite a bit since last season because, frankly, he just wasn't as good. Now, for the Cardinals, it's not that he was bad. It's just he wasn't as good as he was the previous year. With the Cardinals in 2025, he was 3-1. The ERA was 3, had 21 saves, ERA plus of 138. You're not going to complain about numbers like that normally, but it was a far cry from what we saw in 2024 when he had an ERA plus of 202, like much better. But the Mets were hoping what they were trying to accomplish here was to get as many bullpen arms as they could. And that way they would have multiple different people they could turn to in any given situation late in a game. Now, Helsley wasn't going to be the closer. Edwin Diaz is the closer in New York. That wasn't why they were acquiring him. Not there to get saves. They were hoping he'd just be a weapon to use later in the games. And it did not work out very well at all. Things did not go well in New York. He appeared in 22 games, went 0-3 with a 7.20 ERA. He allowed 20 runs in 20 innings, 16 of them earned, and his ERA plus plummeted to 57. So to trade, if you just looked at the numbers and go, yeah, we traded that guy away, to get anything in return for that performance is a plus in my book. So, hey, John Mozeliak, good job. Because the Cardinals were able to get 3 prospects in return. Shortstop Jesus Baez, right-handed pitcher Frank Eliasalt, and right-handed pitcher Nate Dome. Daniel Guerrero from STLtoday.com recently did a piece about all the prospects they got in return at the deadline, including these guys from the Mets. And I just kind of wanted to share his thoughts with you because, far too often we forget about these guys, right? If they're not AAA guys or major league guys, if they're not on the cusp of putting on a St. Louis Cardinals uniform, you kind of forget about them. You're like, where did these guys go? What happened to them? Like, can you tell me what's happened to all the guys that were in the Baltimore Orioles trade for Jack Flaherty? Do you know where they all are? Probably not. But I thought since it's still somewhat fresh, it was only a couple of months ago, we would check in on him because I don't want him getting lost in the background because that was a major part of this season. What happened at the deadline for the Cardinals? I'm going to put the link to Daniel's article in the show notes and the description down below. So if you want to check it out for yourself, do that. But here's what he had to say about the Mets deal. All right. Baez, who was the biggest prospect they got in return. Jesus Baez spent August and September with Class High A Peoria. 20 years old, posted a 243 batting average, 681 OPS, hit 4 home runs in 27 games with Peoria to help him reach a career high of 14 home runs in 103 games across the 2 organizations and 3 levels of minor league baseball. Baez had his strikeout rate jump to 23% and walk rate dip to 8.2% while with Peoria as his swinging strike rate rose per Fangraphs. He played the bulk of his time at shortstop, but also at third base and second base. Now, my thoughts on this is the kid's 20 years old. The dude is raw. All right. Clearly, the scouts like this dude. All right. They like his potential. He's not a big guy by any means. I think, what was he, 5'10, 5'10, I think 180. I think it's what they have him listed as. Hold on. Let me triple check this sucker for you real quick just to make sure. But I believe that's what it was. 5'10, 180. Yeah. 5'10", 180 pounds. All right. So to hear that power is one of his things, like, it's kind of, whoa, really? You wouldn't think a guy with that lack of size on him would actually be considered a power hitter, but it's something that they talk about a lot. They like his potential. He's rated as the number 7 prospect in the system, according to MLB Pipeline, which gives the Cardinals 3 infielders in their top 10. You've got number 1 overall prospect, J.J. Weatherholt, who should be on the Cardinals next year. And then Yadier Molina, who is only 18 years old, and he comes in at number 9. So 3 infielders in the top 10. You'll take that. You'll take that. According to Guerrero, Nate Dome is viewed as the top-ranked pitching prospect for the Cardinals netted at the deadline. Made 5 starts with Class High A Peoria. Posted a 5.11 ERA with 13 strikeouts and 9 walks in 12 1/3 innings. The 5 starts in Peoria capped Dome's first season of minor league baseball, during which the 22-year-old starter went 3-7 with a 3.24 ERA and 90 strikeouts in 75 innings. He also points out that he ended the 2025 minor league season with a 27.9% strikeout rate. You like to see that. He comes in at number 17 in the top 30 prospects for the Cardinals, again, according to MLB Pipeline. The numbers after the trade and what he did with the Cardinals, they don't look great, honestly. But I'm optimistic that getting settled in with his new surroundings in the Cardinals organization from day 1 of the season is certainly going to benefit him. I mean, uprooting a 22-year-old from where he was pitching in a different organization and moving him over and having to go to Peoria, Illinois, which I have spent time there, worked there for quite some time. Yeah, it's like, it's a different world, right? And it can be traumatic for anyone. And at 22 years old, obviously that probably had an effect on him. But when you look at the overall body of work for last year, the ERA at 3.24, the strikeout numbers, 90 in 75 innings, it's pretty encouraging. So I'm not worried about him whatsoever. Frank Elisalt was the final piece of that Helsley deal. Per Guerrero, he finished the 2025 season in Class High A, where he had a 5.59 ERA and 9 2/3 innings. The 23-year-old righties, 4 outings, 3 of them were starts in Peoria, wrapped up his season, during which he maintained a 3.41 ERA and a 1.08 whip in 66 innings as a reliever and a starter. He's not a top 30 guy, but encouraging numbers overall, despite not seeing much success after the trade. What I'm most interested in when it comes to these guys, particularly the pitchers, is where they're going to start next year. Are they going to remain an A-ball, or do the Cardinals push them to Double-A Springfield to get the season started? I'm not in a rush when it comes to Jesus Baez. Again, 20 years old. No need to rush him. But the other 2 are 22 and 23 years old. So hopefully they get off to good starts wherever they end up and can become solid pieces for this farm system that, had a lot of injuries in their topper echelon of pitchers last year. Tekoa Roby, Sim Robertson, both had Tommy John surgery, will likely miss the entire 2026 season. Cooper Jerpy had to have Tommy John surgery. He won't be back until the middle of the season. Teen Kent's is always hurt, it seems like. So it'd be nice to see, these guys that they acquired, for them to remain healthy and become, very productive for the Cardinals farm system. As far as Helsley goes, because people have asked me about this, he is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. It would not shock me if he and the Cardinals had conversations about him returning to St. Louis. Wouldn't shock me at all. Maybe like a 1-year deal with a team or player option for a second year. Helsley is certainly hoping for a multi-year deal from somebody, but after the issues in New York, I'm not sure how many teams are going to be willing to offer him that. He loved St. Louis. He loved being with the Cardinals. It was all he knew. He was obviously much better as a member of the Cardinals and in a closer role, which is still open. I mean, think about it. I mean, yeah, Romero filled in for the rest of the year as kind of the pseudo closer guy, but they also used Riley O'Brien. You could have Helsley come back and be a closer and then still have Romero, O'Brien, Swanson. It's pretty strong. A few guys there at the back end if you are going to move Kyle Leahy up to the rotation. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section on what you think of the deal as it stands today. Are you still pleased with what they got for Helsley? Are you still mad that they didn't trade him during the offseason and would have probably gotten more in return? Would you be willing to give Ryan Helsley another shot as the closer for the Cardinals now that his price tag is likely dropped? Because remember, when they were talking about having to sign him, we were talking Josh Hader-like money because of how good he was. But now that he had such a rough time in New York, the price has probably dropped considerably. So would you give him an opportunity, or do you think it's best to just move on with the guys they got already and just turn the page on Ryan Helsley? Let me know in the comments section. Up next, we're going to do Cardinal Confessions. People want to have their thoughts read out loud about their feelings towards Yadier Molina, Oli Marmol, and the Yadi coaching news that was brought up yesterday, or I should say on Thursday, depending on when you are listening to this. But we'll get into that coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app in any way you feel like that's how you want to play. I mean, I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play, which is great. It's not like just one thing and you have to do it this way. You can build parlays. You can do the player props, which is my personal favorite as a fantasy football guy. And you can follow the live lines, and you can jump in that way as well. Whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. My Packers are at home. They're coming off the bye week, and they got to face Joe Flacco in the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Flacco already beat him once when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Now the Bengals got him, and he's going to try to beat him again. This time he's got to do it at Lambeau. Last time I checked, it was a 14.5-point spread for the Packers. So I'm hoping they pull that off and can beat up on the Bengals, who have not been very good this year since Joe Burrow went down. So, but you figure out the way you want to play. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, we had some Yadier Molina news, and it was good news, I think, for the Cardinals and Cardinal Nation. According to the newspaper in Puerto Rico who spoke with the Cardinal legend, he told them right now, he is in contact with St. Louis to coach the Cardinals and help Oli Marmol. He's still the manager. I screw up this quote every time. He's still the manager, but I'd be there by his side. Nothing is concrete yet, but we're working on it. Now, I'm not one that gets his hopes up about this stuff anymore. After the Molina announcement a couple years ago that never came to fruition, after Matt Holliday was hired and then stepped down, I just wait until things are official before I get my happy juices flowing about anything. But we know how Yadi affects this fan base. We know how beloved he is and what kind of baseball guy he is. And the Cardinals and any club, I think, would be foolish not to want him around. And if his personal life is to a spot where it would allow him to become a full-time coach, then bring it on. I don't think the Cardinals would have a problem with him just being like a part-time guy. I would assume they'd want him around more than just twice, which is what they got this past year. But I think they're willing to work on it with Yadi and figure it out. One of the things that I worry about, is this would cause is a little bit of turmoil, right? Among fans who will want Yadi as the head honcho instead of Oli. It's the same dynamic we discussed a couple of years ago when Yadi was supposed to join the team. One guy is the boss. The other guy eventually wants to be the boss. They have a great relationship clearly between the two, but the current boss has only got 1 year left on his deal. Seems like there could be some friction at some point. And maybe it's not between Oli and Yadi. Again, they appear to have a great relationship. Everything Yadi says about Oli is always positive, and I was like, no, he's the guy. I just be there helping out. Like, he's a man. But you know how this fan base is gonna be. Who should be in charge? You get one losing streak, and it's like, all right, down with Oli. This should be Yadi's team. Winning will quiet those things a little bit, but they're not expected to win a whole lot next year. They're not supposed to be, Colorado Rockies bad or anything, but they're supposed to kind of be around where they were this past year, where they're, around the 500 mark. So here are a couple of the responses, AKA the Cardinal confessions, as we call them, to the story yesterday. And a lot of them sound like this. So I'll give you three. Yadier needs to be the manager. Oli must go. I really believe the players will respond better to Yadi than they will Oli. They should have locked in Albert and Yadi already. Marmol needs to go back to picking players up at the airport. How do you know he doesn't do that already? He might still do that. Oli seems like a guy you can call and go, bro, need a ride from the airport. You can hook it up. He seems like a guy to come get you. And then another one. If Yadi was coming back as manager, I would buy tickets in 2026. But since Oli is still manager, I will stay away for the third year in a row. Not buying tickets because of the manager. Now, there are plenty of people that don't think Oli is the problem. Count me as one of them. I don't think this is all on Oli. My issue with Oli is that, and it's not, I shouldn't say my issue. What I think an issue with Oli is that in the fan base's eyes, that he's been tainted with the mediocrity that has occurred with this franchise over the last 3 seasons. And in my opinion, fans are always going to look down on him as a losing manager because of it. Even though when the team was pretty good, they won the division back in 2022. And I always come back to this point when I'm sticking up for Oli, because I find myself doing it a lot, because there's, the noise about him not being a good manager is a lot louder than the people who think he is a decent manager. But the main reason why I believed Oli was going to come back, and the main reason why I'm not down on him, and it's not the wins and losses thing, it's because the players have always stuck up for him. They have never swayed from having Oli's back. There's never been discontent that we know of in the clubhouse, of a level where they have turned their backs on him. They've drowned him out. They're not listening anymore. That, as far as I know, has never happened. Even in the toughest times of 23, last year, and now this year. They continue to stick up for him. Katie Wu, great writer from The Athletic. She's been on the podcast before. Put out a story in The Athletic either today or yesterday talking about how Oli handled the Michael McGreevy situation this year, and how well he did handling that situation, how despite performing well, that he had to sit McGreevy down and tell him he wasn't going to make the opening day roster, and how he fought for him behind the scenes to become a member of this rotation because he deserved it, which he eventually did, and rightfully so. She's got quotes from McGreevy, Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, and Chaim Bloom on how well he handled what was a very difficult season for the whole organization, because winning wasn't always the number one priority this year. It wasn't. getting a look at certain players trumped what was the best lineup each and every day for the St. Louis Cardinals. It's one of the reasons why fans were pissed off this year. Is they're like, no, we want the winning. Like, no. And when you're not putting forth like the best team on the field because the front office needs to look at people, that's upsetting, you know? Oli hasn't been given what I would consider a winning roster since 2023. Even though that team only won 71 games, they expected to be much better than that. And I know they lost Pujols. They lost Yadi that offseason going into 23. But you had Arenado and you had Goldie, who were top, Goldie won the MVP. Arenado was a top 3 finalist for the MVP. You had them coming back. You had Adam Wainwright coming back. Who thought that their production would decline as significantly as it did from the previous year? Waino hurt, falls off a cliff production-wise. Arenado slips, still almost drove in 100 runs, but Goldie wasn't anywhere close to what he was like his MVP season. Tyler O'Neill was hurt. Wilson Contreras was brought in, but we had that whole catching fiasco early on in the season where it's like, this dude doesn't even know what he's doing back there. Michaelis and Gallegos started their declines. Jack Flaherty was a disappointment. Just nothing went well. Things went south really quick, and it wasn't about who was in the lineup and who wasn't. It wasn't bullpen decisions that tanked that season. It was the level of talent on the field had dipped so severely in 23 that they just couldn't win baseball games anymore. They weren't good enough. Now, you can argue that you think that a more veteran manager would have been able to get more out of those guys. But as we saw, the decline of some of those guys, it has continued. It hasn't gotten better. It wasn't just a one-off type of season. Gallegos is in the minor leagues for the Dodgers, I think. Michaelis has been what Michaelis has been the last 3 years. Contreras has been better, but they had to move him to first base. Nato and Goldie are on their last legs, it feels like. Wainwright had to retire. Tyler O'Neill had an okay year with the Boston Red Sox, and now he was hurt all year, again with Baltimore. How do you win with that? That's why I say I don't know how many managers actually would do a much better job with what they've got to work with. But maybe Oli doesn't return at the end of the year. This is the final year of his deal. Maybe he gets extended if things go well because he's done so well with this transition period, which, Katie talks about, where he had 2 bosses that he had to pay attention to, or he's got one that's dealing with major league stuff. You got one dealing with minor league stuff. They all want their crap done the way they want it done. Bottom line is the front office likes him. Chaim Bloom likes him, clearly. The players like him. It's the fans who still have their doubts about him, and they'll continue to tear him down regularly until this franchise starts winning again. I don't know. It'll be an interesting dynamic if Yadi's in there more of a full-time role this year. I hope it happens. I really do. The more Yadi, the better, in my opinion. Speaking of winning, the MLB playoffs continued on Thursday. The Cubs are refusing to go quietly. The NL Central battle for a spot in the NLCS continues. We'll talk about it next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried these products before. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, you want to think outside the normal pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. Thinking outside of this, thinking above a usual pill is where Rougiette Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for your confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you're able to go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours, which means, when the time is right, you're going to have the confidence all day, all night, have a little extra to have a little fun in the next day if you need it. The process, very, very simple too, which is great. Connect with a board-certified doctor. You do it 100% online. You don't have to, drive to a doctor's office or find a certain person. You do it online. And if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. You don't have to go anywhere to pick it up. You don't have to go to Walgreens and go get it. Comes to your place. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? I'm sure you are. Head to Rougiette.com. That's RUGIET.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com. promo code Locked On MLB, and make sure to use our code. That way they know we sent you. Get back on the field with confidence at rougiet.com. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. You'll get local analysis on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I will be on there tonight along with Steve. We only got one game in the playoffs going on tonight, but we'll be talking about all of it because the NL Central, I know it wasn't considered a powerhouse of a division this year. Heck, it never gets much credit, to be honest, because other than Chicago, none of our cities are in none of our teams are in major markets, right? But more times than not, you usually got 2, maybe even 3 teams competing for playoff spots at the very end. And they're doing it over a lot of these big city teams. And, this year you had 3 of them making the NL playoffs. Cincinnati, Chicago, and Milwaukee. Cardinals were competitive with all 3 this year, which is great because it means that you're really not that far off from being one of those teams. You won 7 of 13 against Cincy. You won the series. 6 of 13 against Milwaukee, who had the best record in baseball. You only won 5 against Chicago, but the end of the season sweep where they won the final 3 games kind of sucked because the Cardinals were already eliminated. Nobody really cared anymore. And the Cubs were just trying to get their crap together to go to the playoffs, where the Cardinals were like, we just want to go to the offseason, man. We just want to go to Mexico. We just want to go to the golf course. So losing those last 3 really, altered those numbers to make it worse. But when both teams were in the thick of things, Cardinals and Cubs had really good series. The Reds bowed out quickly to the Dodgers, as we know. Cubs took care of San Diego, moved on to face the Brewers. And despite Milwaukee jumping out to a 2-0 lead, the Cubs have fought back. They won Game 3 by a score of 4-3, then took Game 4 on Thursday night 6-0. Now, last night they took down the Brewers' top pitching starter in Freddie Peralta, too. So it wasn't like they faced some scrub. They forced him to throw 84 pitches in just 4 innings of work. They got 3 off him in the first inning. Shocker, because the Cubs have been doing a ton of damage in that first inning in this series. Got that 2-out, 3-run dinger by Ian Happ. They also got a solo home run from Kyle Tucker, who I'm curious to see if the Cubs are going to bring back next year. And not to be outdone, of course, Michael Busch had to hit another home run, hit one in the 8th inning to cap things off. Busch has now got 7 hits in 7 games this postseason, and 4 of them have left the yard. We saw plenty of him during the regular season. He hit 9 home runs off the Cardinals. So we know he's got the pop. So thanks a lot, LA, for sending him to the NL Central. Although the prospects they traded to LA in return for Michael Busch are actually 2 of their best prospects in the Dodgers organization. So maybe that trade will even out at some point. Right now, though, Michael Busch is the star of it. Game 5 will be in Milwaukee on Saturday night. Been a very entertaining series, to say the least. And I find it cool that the NL Central is well represented in it. Dodgers eliminated the Phillies on a throwing error by the pitcher. Are you kidding me? Rough way to end it for Philadelphia. But after they fell behind 2-0 in the series, losing both their games at home in Philly, kind of seemed inevitable that the Dodgers would end up winning at least one of these 2 games at Dodger Stadium. So they move on to the NLCS as they try to, repeat as the World Series champion. They'll face either the Cubs or Brewers. In the American League, the Mariners host Detroit on Friday night, Game 5. Winner moves on to face the Blue Jays in the ALCS, who took care of the Yankees. Tarek Skubal will take the hill for the Tigers against George Kirby for Seattle. Does Skubal have another ace performance left in him? And he's got to do it against a team that he's already faced, I think it's 3 times already this year. I think they had 2 starts against them in the regular season and then already faced them in this particular series, a game that the Mariners won. Now he's got to do it again. So this will be the 4th time they've seen him. So had some decent success against Skubal. Not many people do. Tigers certainly hoping for a 2011 Chris Carpenter type of start out of him, going back to that start that Carpenter had against the Philadelphia Phillies when the Cardinals upset Philadelphia in that first round through that complete game 1-0 shutout victory over Philadelphia. And we all know what happened the rest of that season in 2011. Champions, World Series champions. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and the JD Sports Radio, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It really helps the channel to grow and to reach more Cardinal fans here in this offseason, an offseason that obviously is going to be an entertaining one. There's going to be some changes going on around here, and we're going to be here right with you the entire time. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. You're the best fans in baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.